It's so great whenever I go to do a first impression of a show and I'm absolutely sold on it. And then something happens at the very end of the last episode I watch and it's just like, oof, I don't know if I'm... That's a bad stain. But no, I'm getting ahead of myself. The beautiful yet disgusting world of Sugar Apple Fairy Tale has honestly entrapped me for the last 3 episodes. A really fantastic start of a series, really getting me invested in the world, the art, the beauty, and the willingness for the writer to really kind of delve into a very touchy subject. But like I said, there's one little issue. And we'll get into that when we get into it. My first impressions of the first 3 episodes of Sugar Apple Fairy Tale, a series that is airing in the winter 2023 anime season. I'm excited to talk about this series, so let's jump right into it. Sugar Apple Fairy Tale opens up in the Kingdom of Highland, where humans and fairies for a long time were living side by side very peacefully. But unfortunately, one day the humans decide to uprise and enslave the fairies, which is unfortunately very easy because all they really have to do is get a hold of one of the fairies' wings and allows them to control them. The person that controls them usually keeps it in a pouch so that whenever the fairy acts out, all they gotta do is crush it, and it puts the fairy through extreme pain. It can even kill them. Well, 500 years after the enslavement, we follow a girl named An, who is being raised by her mother, who is actually a confectionist for sugar candies. Sugar candies are like a sacred food. It actually extends the lifespan of the fairies themselves, and it also brings great fortune to humans. And the method of refining the sugar apples into silver sugar was actually created by the fairies themselves. So An's mother instills upon her the importance that she never look down upon the fairies. Well, jump forward and An has unfortunately lost her mother, and she's made it her goal to go to the royal capital, have her skill acknowledged by the king themselves, to allow her to be able to create the best confection to kind of send her mother's spirit off, to allow her mother to pass on peacefully without worrying about her. And so she begins her journey to go to the royal capital, much to the upset of Jonas, a childhood friend. He desires to marry her and doesn't want her to leave, and she's appreciative to Jonas and his family because they've essentially been taking care of her ever since he lost her mother. But An knows that this trip is not going to be safe, so she decides to go to a nearby village, go to where they trade and sell fairies, and acquire a fighting fairy to protect her. Well, when she arrives at this village, she ends up finding this fairy hunter who is mistreating this small fairy, stepping on it and crushing its wing. And An's wondering why everybody's standing by and watching this happen. But again, this is kind of a normality in this world. Everybody is not going to step up against this guy, even though they do kind of see it as cruel. But An steps forward, kicks the back of the guy's knee, takes the fairy's wing and gives it back to it. And it runs off, saying, "I'm not going to thank a human for saving me." And thankfully, even though the fairy hunter is really mad at her, finally the village stands up. They're like, "We don't care about the fairy, but we'll keep you from attacking this girl." Well, following this incident, she goes to the nearby fairy trade to get this warrior fairy to protect her on her journey. And she finds the most vulgar and annoying fairy possible, which is Chalet. And even though she's entranced by the beauty of his wing, he immediately calls her a scarecrow. Like she's the thinness of a scarecrow. And yes, Chalet's even vulgar to the seller that's selling him. And so the guy uses his wings to harm Chalet. And this pushes An to accept to buy him. And thus begins An's journey through the deadly, bloody highway with this guard, Chalet. The entire time, An talking about how she's going to free Chalet once they arrive where they're going. There's a lot of discussion about her wanting to befriend him, even though she's holding his wing hostage, fears of him stealing the wing away and leaving her for dead, or even him killing her and stealing the wing back. And eventually, Jonas catches up with An, claims that he loves her, wants to marry her, and the two of them have to travel together. At some point, they stop at this one checkpoint, end up running into this other guy who pretty much talks down upon An and her ability to craft sugar candies, claiming that she's just mimicking somebody else's style, her mother's. And then yes, at the very end of the 3rd episode, we have An has to frantically put together enough silver candy in order to create her thing that she's going to turn into the competition. And then Jonas runs off with it. Not just runs off with it, but throws blood on her using Kathy, his fairy, and then runs off with it and tries and leaves her to dead to wolves. Anyways, my thoughts on Sugar Apple Fairy Tale. This series is very beautiful. Visually, I really love the style. The character designs are absolutely gorgeous. Visually, I love it. Now, there is a little bit of a concern that I have for this series visually because it's almost like a combination of 3 different art styles. There's this kind of more very plain, very simplistic look. There's a lot of use of kind of cross-sketching filters. And then you have like the very beautiful and detailed look of the characters themselves. And I thought at first that was going to be kind of jarring. But over time, I kind of got used to it. I think it's a very beautiful style. It's very fairy tale picture book like. A lot of the close-up shots, the eyes are so absolutely gorgeous. And yes, they're nailing the wings themselves. Like Shala's wing is just gorgeous. They really nailed the aesthetic, and I hope they keep to this. JC Staff's doing an incredible job so far. Keep with it. The world itself, though, like I mentioned at the very beginning, I think this is kind of a disgusting but beautiful world. I really love what they're kind of doing here because, yes, it is obviously hitting heavy on the subject of here's this race and they are essentially controlling this other race. It's a very kind of unsettling setup they have here because An's being raised to accept the fairies because the craft that you have, which is sugar candies and making these beautiful creations, was made by the fairies. You should respect them and not look down upon them because they create this thing that you now utilize. It is the candies that they consume to extend their lives. And Shala even later on tells her that they don't consume food, but they can taste the candies. She brings him a bowl of soup and all he does is kind of just put his hand above it and just absorbs it. Like he doesn't taste it. So she's concerned about him not liking how it tastes. But again, they do taste the candies themselves. It's like a unique thing for them. But yes, this world's kind of messed up in the idea that now people control them, and it's a normal thing. And they've already kind of established that. It's a normal thing. People just assume, well, it's a fairy, it's being controlled by somebody. That's a normality in this world. It's an uncomfortable normality of this world. And obviously, it's a setup for An's story, which is that she's that person that is almost the bridge. And I think what I appreciate about the most is that it's not trying to paint An as being this goody-goody two-shoes. She openly accepts that she's no different. Now, we don't get a full sense of why. I would hope that it's probably going to be a thing about An understanding that she's not doing anything about it. She's not a great person. She's not going to grandstand in the middle of the village and go, well, I wouldn't do that. She's not that way. And yes, she even acknowledged the fact that she's going to go buy one. She is in the system itself. She's not okay with it, seemingly, but she's not grandstanding like she's some better person. Because I think that would easily lead me into the idea of like, well, you're a hypocrite because you just went and bought Shala. She acknowledges what she's doing and that she's not a good person. She's no different than all the other villagers standing by while this one fairy is being stepped on. Now, granted, she did step forward. And I think it was only because it was being mistreated. If it wasn't being mistreated, she probably wouldn't care. So again, like I said, I do appreciate the willingness to do that. Now, will it make it in some message going forward? I'm not sure. I will say one side of it I'm getting frustrated with already, and it has to do partly with what's happening at the end of the third episode. So far, this story is just really going way too hog wild on the idea of humans bad, fairies good. Everything the fairies do is good. The humans bad. Jonas is bad. The villagers are bad. Don't trust any humans. They're bad. The fairies, though, you can always trust the fairies. Mithril didn't steal your candies. Kathy was trying to warn you about the evil human. Even though she's madly in love with Jonas, she's at least good because she told An. I don't know if it's going to stick to that, but so far it's like, okay, I understand the humans bad in this world because, again, they're controlling the fairies, but can we not make every human out to be the scum of the world and it lead to this thing where An is the only person that understands that the fairies are all good people? We'll see, though. And I think that's partly why the end of the third episode bugged me so much. The moment that Jonas literally instructs Kathy to drag wolves over to him, dust An with a bunch of blood to get her killed. It was just like, you guys are pushing it way too hard. And I'll get more on that in a minute. But like I said, the world itself set up so far is pretty solid. I like this setup so far because it's kind of creating this whole obvious separation. A lot of the lore they're putting into the fairies so far is really solid. Every fairy is different. Again, there's like warrior fairies. Yes, there's companion fairies, which everybody believes that she got Shala because she wants him to be a companion. There's just standard fairies, workers and stuff like that. So they've already got an interesting little setup with this. And the idea that there's different types of fairies. Each one of them is spawned from different things. Any object essentially can become a fairy. The objects themselves pretty much gather energy, and the moment a human looks upon it, it gives it form, and that's how a fairy is born. And so with Shala, it's like there's this little gem or whatever that was sitting on this counter, and this little girl came in and looked upon it, and it became him. Mithril was from a drop of water, so he's able to control water. Which, by the way, Rie Takahashi, and I missed it the first episode, Rie Takahashi, more boyish, voice was definitely something that threw me off. They haven't done too much with the candies aspect of it. When it opened up, it had Ann's mother was kind of crafting one. It was very beautiful, but they never really touched on it again until like way in the third episode. They did make something for this guy at this doctor's place, but it was very quick. So I'll be curious if they get more into the creation of the candies themselves and what they're doing with it. Obviously, I'm guessing Ann's going to get more into it the moment that she gets to the royal capital, but for now, it's kind of very surface level. They show the whole process of turning the apples into the candy itself, which was really cool as well. A lot of the focus obviously seems to be on Ann and her relationship with Charlie, which I think is really, really interesting. And so far, yes, a little bit surface level, but I think they're doing a good job of it. They're kind of pacing it decently well. In the idea that she wants Charlie to trust her, but at the same time, he's going, but you have my wing. Like, if you want me to trust you, give me the wing back. Now, the opposite is kind of in the area of almost a trope, and I struggle a little bit with it, and the idea that Chalet is like very overbearing to Ann. Order me to do it. No, I won't stop those bandits from killing you. I want you to order me to do it. Force me. Squeeze that wing. It's what? Like, dude, chill. Like, they went a little bit heavy on Chalet's personality and the idea that he's very, very forceful and he wants her to command him. Treat me like all the other guys do. And it's like, girl doesn't want to do that. Just why is that not a good thing? Why are we not okay with the fact that she's just like, hey, can you take down these bandits? No, I want you to be forceful with me. It's a little bit much, but I think they're kind of chilling out a little bit on it. But I do kind of find it a little bit disheartening that it's almost kind of turning from a progression of their relationship where Ann proves to Chalet that they want a mutual relationship rather than her forcing him. And unfortunately, it's almost kind of pushing it into a realm where she's kind of giving in to what he wants. Say, I'm going to ask you first and then I'll command you. And if you don't, I'm going to punch you or whatever. It's getting into those things where she's, rather than him accepting that she's a good person, in a sense, instead it's on accepting what he wants, which is to be more forceful, which maybe that's a good thing in the end. Maybe it will help her grow up to be more confident. But in the wake of the fairies and trying to gain relationship with them and favor with them, I think that's it's a bad direction to go in. It's almost like she's devolving into what all the other humans do. But we all know why they're doing it. There's a group of people that like that type of relationship. It's going into the realms of the Wolf Girl and Black Prince, which I hope it doesn't do that too much. But yes, let's get into why Andrew's bugged by the ending of episode 3 so much. And I hope this is not a sign of what's to come. Like I said earlier, it really is painting this in the direction of humans bad, fairies good. And I hope they don't go too heavy on that. It almost feels like episode 3's ending is a confirmation of that. Because let's play this out. Obviously, Jonas, I assumed he wasn't going to be fully madly in love with Ann. There was a side of me that was almost wondering if it's going to be one of those things where Ann doesn't realize what's in front of her. Like, oh, well, he's just pitying me. That's the only reason he likes me. And then when he actually does pursue her, it's like, no, maybe he actually does like you. But there was a sense down there that, yes, he's from a noble family. He's probably going to be full of himself. He's going to be selfish or whatever. It's just how it's executed almost breaks everything before it. Because what they've already established before is that Ann was taken care of by Jonas's family. And she gave zero indication that this guy is a selfish jerk. So with that pre-established setup and the idea that Ann has no recollection that Jonas is a murdering psychopath, it makes the acceptance of suddenly a split-second thought that he is going to order Kathy to spray her with blood and drag a bunch of wolves to her doesn't make any sense. That is a very big leap of logic from somebody who is probably selfish, noble, to now committing murder to steal a piece of candy. He could have just stole it and ran off, but no, we went an extra step in the idea that he's literally going to have her killed because he so badly wants to get this position of the royal noble confectionist or whatever. That's a huge stretch of logic, and it doesn't make any sense based on the idea that Ann has never really indicated at any point that he is willing to go that far. You have to pre-establish something to indicate, no, this guy is kind of wrong. Like, this guy is willing to do some crazy stuff. Like, they could have easily done something with Hugh, have Jonas actually step up and almost do something just to indicate that he is capable. But no, there was no signs of capability of going that far. And that's why it bugs me so much. Another reason why it doesn't make any sense is what happened at the very beginning of the series. Jonas tried to stop An. If he's willing to steal her creation, why would he stop her back here? It doesn't make any sense. She could go off and create this thing, win the competition, then he could steal something from her later on. But no, he was trying to stop her back here, and then he ends up following her and then steals it later. The lineup of logic here just doesn't make any sense. Again, I love everything about this show all the way up until the end of episode 3, but that was a sign of some really sloppy writing in the end. And like I said, I almost feel like they're just using it as a way of just pushing this narrative that humans bad and don't accept humans. All fairies are good. Chalet's good. Kathy's good. Mithril's good. It's all the humans' fault. And again, I hope that they dial that back a little bit. Yes, the humans bad in this world because they're accepting this, but let's just chill a little bit. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Sugar Apple Fairy Tale. Hopefully this video is not too long, but it's got a lot of promise, and that's usually a good sign. If I'm talking a lot about a show, then it's usually a sign that yes, there's something in here that's really promising, and I hope it nails it. And I hope that this staying at the end of episode 3 is not a bad sign. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what you think of the series if you're gonna be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks button down below. We also have a memberships button. I greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel. You guys mean so much to me. Y'all take care.